to go all the way back to the end of the 20th century, beginning of the 21st century, to find a Republican ahead at this point. 24 years. At this particular point, the idea that a Democrat is ahead, there are voters in the electorate who are dealing with a poll position they have never seen before, and that is a Republican leading in the national popular vote, at least according to the polls.
A very unusual situation.
Oh, CNN is in a full panic. That's what y'all get. This video is brought to you by TatumStore.com. TatumStore.com, Biden Live shirt. I've been telling y'all about this shirt. Wear this and trigger every friend that you know that's supporting Joe Biden. He literally lied about this, and it's 300 more lies that we have on there. I think we got to add some more because just recently he didn't lie a couple more times. But it's QR code fact checked. So if you read some of these lies about him going to jail for Nelson Mandela and all this other stuff, and they go, he didn't say that. Joe Biden would have never said that. Okay, scan this QR code real quick and shut the front door. Scan the code and shut the front door. Verify that he lied about this and a whole bunch of other stuff. Get you one of these shirts, like and subscribe to the channel. Y'all already know what to do. Let's get into this. Like the button. Hit the like button. Hit the like button. You can also like the button if you want to like the button, but I really just need you to hit the button whether you like it or not. All right, let's talk about it. CNN, flipping out. I'm going to methodically go through this video and show you CNN polling, which we know they're all false to a certain degree. CNN polling, and then I'm going to show you why their polling looks like this. They're not going to tell you, so I got to show you. Let's play the clip first. Roll the poll.
I just want to point out where the polls are now, where they were at this point back in 2020, and Joe Biden's worst position in the polls back in 2020. Right now, Donald Trump leads in an aggregate of national polls by about 3 percentage points. If you go back 4 years ago at this point, Joe Biden was ahead by 9 points. This right now don't look anything like what we saw 4 years ago at this point. I then decided to take it a step further. What was Biden's worst 2020 polling position? He was ahead by 4 points, which basically matched what he ended up beating Donald Trump by in the national popular vote. So this 3-point advantage for Donald Trump is Donald Trump's best position versus Joe Biden, whether you include the polls this year or you include the polls last cycle. The idea that the polls underestimated Joe Biden last time around, simply put, does not hold any water, Mr. Berman.
Not in the general election, certainly. What about in terms of being underestimated in the Trump era in general?
Yeah. So I decided to expand upon our search. Who outperformed their July national polls? This is major elections during the Trump era. We can start in the midterms, right? Take a look here. This is the 2022 midterm. This is a generic congressional ballot. In fact, Republicans were underestimated by a point. They outperformed their July polls and the actual result by a percentage point. You go back to 2018, Democrats did outperform their polls, but just by a point. Basically, the polls were right on at this particular point in the midterm elections. We talk about the presidential race. Last time around, Donald Trump actually did better in the results than his July polls by 5 points. You go back to 2016, you see something very similar. That is, the July polls actually underestimated Donald Trump. He outperformed his July polls. So the idea in the Trump era that the polls have underestimated Democrats, whether it be in a Joe Biden matchup, whether it be a matchup against Hillary Clinton, whether it be in the midterms, at least in the national polling, that right now shows Donald Trump in his strongest position, simply put, is not true. If anything, the polls have underestimated Republicans during the Trump era, especially in the presidential races in 2016 and in 2020.
Let me explain to you why. Back in 2016, they were double polling Democrats because they didn't want the country to know that Donald Trump was so effective in his approach. He was so effective in polling. So they were double polling Democrats, which in some cases they had Donald Trump lower or whatever the case may be, and he outperformed it. It's not that he outperformed it because somehow we didn't know what Donald Trump was going to do. It's because the polling mechanism in which they were polling, and it came out, proven fact, they were double polling Democrats. And they're trying to do the same thing now. They may be letting off the gas a little bit because they want it to be overwhelming that Donald Trump is beating Joe Biden so they can replace him with somebody else. But when you see 3 points and you see 5 points, I mean, we're not even to the election yet. Joe Biden's progressively getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And if Kamala Harris come out and try to be the nominee, while the active president is not even running for re-election, these numbers are going to be far worse than what they're looking at right now. When I say worse, worse for the Democrats. I think Donald Trump could be up by like 12 points right now. And one reason is all the converts. There were once Democrats, once in the middle, and now they're on the Trump train. All of these converts are, innumerable. I know so many people that's like, oh, no, I'm voting for Trump this time. I'm voting for Trump this time. I can't find a person that said they vote for Biden. And I'm telling you, he 3 points here, 5-point outperformance in 2020, and that's when he lost. Imagine where he's at right now in 2024. He's probably 12 points ahead, but we won't know it until after the election. Let's keep watching this.
On that front, I mean, how unusual is it for a Republican to be ahead by this much right now?
Yeah. So let's go all the way back. Who led in early July polls? Well, right now, Donald Trump is ahead. Go back in 2020, a Democrat, Biden. 2016, Hillary Clinton, a Democrat. 2008, 2012, a Democrat. Even in 2004, where George W. Bush ended up winning, John Kerry was actually ahead in the polls at this point. You have to go all the way back to 2000, to George W. Bush being ahead in the early July polls. You have to go all the way back to the end of the 20th century, beginning of the 21st century, to find a Republican ahead at this point. 24 years. At this particular point, the idea that a Democrat is ahead, there are voters in the electorate who are dealing with a poll position they have never seen before, and that is a Republican leading in the national popular vote, at least according to the polls.
I don't trust them, so I don't know where they're going with this. But if this is true and they're being fair in their reporting, Donald Trump is kicking ashy elbows like never before.
Very unusual situation. One thing I just will point out, Biden may be talking about the primaries in 2020, where he did not do well in Iowa and New Hampshire, and then he ended up with the nomination. But that's a different animal. That is a vastly different animal than any kind of a general election setting.
Correct. In fact, if you were to look back at the 2020 national Democratic primary polls, they mostly had Biden ahead, except for that little small portion, right, when he lost Iowa and then lost to New Hampshire and then lost to Nevada. But overall, those primary polls had him ahead, and then he won. And certainly when it came to the general election, the polls always had Joe Biden. There wasn't a single poll that met CNN standards for publication that ever had Donald Trump ahead in 2020. And now you have a slew of them, and the average, of course, definitely has Donald Trump ahead.
That's right. What he says it is on this front. Harriet, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Why they seem excited about this, though? That's the only thing that's kind of weird to me. Why do they seem excited about Donald Trump taking his victory like never before? Why do they seem so excited? I'm kind of nervous and curious about this same thing, or about this at the same time. It's because they never liked Trump. They will lie about Trump on national TV in front of your face and gaslight you. And now all of a sudden they're, kind of excited to report that Donald Trump is spanking that butt. Now let me show you guys why these poll numbers look like they do.
The American public is not going to move away from me as an average voter. And again, I'm here for two reasons, pal. One, to rebuild the economy for hardworking middle-class people, give everybody a shot. Just a straight shot. Everybody gets a fair chance, number one. Number two, remember all this talk about how I don't have the black support? Come on, give me a break. Come with me. Watch. I'm getting so frustrated by the elites. Now, I'm not talking about you guys, but about the elites in the party who they know so much more.
Look at this broad. She just so like, oh, he actually sounds like he's alive. It's great for America. Look, he's saying something.
But if any of these guys don't think I should run against me, go ahead, announce for president. Challenge me at the convention.
Let us stand together.
Challenge me at the convention. Look at this fool at the church.
Oh, at the cross.
See, I grew up in a black church, literally. Not like Joe Biden said he did. I grew up in a black church. Baptist church, and then when I went to college, Apostolic Church. Emmanuel Grace Apostolic Church. And so I went to church conferences, and I did a lot of churchy stuff when I was in college. And if you ever gone to a black church, you would know when to stand and when to stay seated. You would be able to pick those cues up if you've ever been to a black church. I don't care what denomination. He clearly don't know where he at.
The cross, at the cross, where I first saw the light, and the burdens of my heart rolled away. It was there by faith I received my sight, and now I am happy. A bumper sticker on a senior citizen's car that said, I may be slow, but I'm in front of you. Use our president. Use his experience. use his handicaps, and be glorified in his life.
His handicap.
In Jesus' name, let's receive our president, the President of the United States, President Joseph Biden.
And I want to thank you for, I said, Bishop, it's good to be home. Please sit down. With your help, I know we have your help. With my help, will help.
That's the most embarrassing church experience I could have ever seen. Like, I can't even watch it. I feel like this amount of transferred embarrassment. Like, why try to, like, for instance, if I went to a white church, and I'm saying that loosely, right? Traditionally white church, because they do church different than Southern black people. I would know the cues. I speak at white churches all the time. I would know the cues if the pastor want me to get up and stand up and walk around and move, and people standing up, they're worshiping, they're doing, I mean, it's nothing. I go to a black church, I know exactly what to do. I know exactly where to move, how to, I've been in a black church my whole life. If this man has so much engagement with the populace over 40 years of being in office, how does he not know how to function in a black church? He claimed he grew up in a black church on his shirt. He claimed he grew up in a black church. Let me let him finish.
When you us working together, we're going to get a hell of a lot done for the American people. And we're going to make sure these things are. So anyway, I guess if I stand here long enough, all those folks in the back are going to die of sunstroke.
It's still a small group, but it's a growing one of Democratic donors who are now publicly calling on Biden to step aside. Netflix co-founder Reed Hastings was one of the first to come out and say Biden needs to resign. Abigail Disney joined in yesterday. The screenwriter Damon Lindelof is calling for a Dembargo, no checks for any Democrats until Biden is gone. And Whitney Tilson is warning that Biden will lose to Trump, possibly, he says, in a landslide. I also want to add that just before I came out here, the New York Times is reporting that a coalition of 168 business leaders, including Christy Walton, the Walmart heir, are calling on Biden to step aside as well. So it's just drip, 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 and we're seeing this grow. These are the folks who are speaking publicly, but behind closed doors, I'm hearing donors who are worried, frustrated, they're a little bit angry. The feeling is sort of, how did we get here and how did we get past this? It's not a unanimous call, though, for Biden's resignation. Reid Hoffman of LinkedIn and his donor advisor, Dimitri Melhorn, have been leading the charge in support of Biden. Melhorn laid out an 8-point argument last night for his network on why Biden is the only one who can beat Trump. The Biden campaign is also pushing to retake the narrative today. They're launching a $50 million ad buy for July, planning campaign travel to every swing state this month. And in a clear reaction to the events of the past week, they're pledging to make Biden available for more interviews. At this point, though, Kelly, all eyes are on that interview you mentioned with ABC News tonight. There's just no overstating how pivotal that could be for the future of this campaign. Kelly?
Trash. Now, I think I just gave you guys enough evidence, enough ammunition to figure this out. But Joe Biden sucks. The polls suck. And I just showed you why he's just falling off the rails after that debate. And it's just going to get worse and worse. Let me know what you think about it. Comment in the comment section. I'm out.